Hello, you lovely listeners. I'm Amy. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast, where we will delve into the minds of the business people we have met in the process of launching our first card game. We will be uncovering their secrets to success, their biggest mistakes, and sharing the key lessons they have picked up en route. So, if you're looking for an engaging chinwag mixed with business insights and a good pinch of fun, you're in the right place. Let's have a really good conversation. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast. Today's guest has over 17 years experience in sales and retail, working with multi-million-pound organisations across a range of sectors, and is currently the managing director of skincare brand Seventh Heaven, who are one of the leading face mask brands in the UK and are stocked in over 80 countries across the world. Welcome to the podcast, Mark Hackwell.
Thanks very much, Amy. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you for joining me. Now, I guess before we jump in, I imagine all of our listeners are dying to know that as a managing director of a skincare brand, how often do you do face masks yourself?
Oh, so prior to being with the brand, not so often. Now, I'd say I'm probably using a face mask at least once a week. To be fair, and our founder, Greg, is obviously a huge fan of the products as well. We take a trip every 6 to 8 weeks over to see Greg, and we try face masks on, or we try products on during that session. So, yeah, really? I've started using them a hell of a lot more, whether that be peel-offs or clays or sheet. To be fair, I prefer using sheet rather than the other formats just because of ease. That's my preference anyway.
Honestly, I was not expecting you to say all of that. So I am impressed that you are very much living, breathing, the brand. And gosh, because myself, I'm like once in a blue moon that I do them. I really should get back, more into it. And actually, when I, contacted yourself and Greg, I did attach, I don't know if you saw in the email, I did attach a picture of me in one of your face masks, the moisturizing effect. I thought I should do this more often.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't know, if you kind of look at average consumption, you're probably not dissimilar to most consumers anyway. But I think if me working for the brand, I have to know the products and I have to live and breathe the products. Otherwise, yeah, it's me relying on the rest of the team, which isn't a good position either.
Brilliant. Well, you're getting health benefits then at the same time. Now, we've obviously had a chat before we're recording this, and you have such a wealth of experience from what you've seen in your career. But something I thought just really key for our listeners and where we are in our journey with a product-based business is how does a brand become a multi-million-pound company?
I'd say there's probably a few different factors to driving a brand to become a multi-million-pound company. First one is having clear identity about what the brand is. So having a clear vision and identity as to what does the brand stand for, who is the target audience, what does the product range need to look like, what does the future innovation pipeline need to look like. Having a quality team behind you as well is pivotal. You've got to have good people. Without having good people and good structures, then it's hard to execute anything really. I think you've also then got to have a good number of processes in place internally as well. So for managing, whether that be sales, stocks, finances, etc. Process is key, but I think most of all, just keeping things simple. Overcomplicated processes and procedures just baffle everyone at the end of the day. And I think for me, I'm quite a simple person. Keeping things simple is an easier way to manage things and execute clear ideas with a real drive and purpose.
Yes, and I think that's the reality for so many, of us, product business owners that create a product. Perhaps it's all those other things that you just highlighted. And how important do you think brand is for the product-based businesses?
I think brand is really important. I think if you don't have brand equity, then effectively you're trading a product, and generally it's probably a product that's replicable within the market, and you end up then trading on price. I've seen it a number of times in my career where you end up, not investing into the brand, not investing into the consumer, and you end up trading on price. And at that point then, yeah, it's a race to the bottom. You end up then trading against own label or tertiary brands within the market. which doesn't serve any purpose. I think you've got to have again, real kind of clear identity in terms of, again, who the consumer is, and then what's going to make them love your brand, and what's going to make them want to part their money to come and live a certain way or feel a certain way having purchased your lines.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting and valid point. And we touched on in the intro that Seventh Heaven is available in over 80 countries. What are the challenges for business when you start getting into that many countries?
I think for a business, especially of our size, obviously we're relying heavily on distributors. So therefore, obviously managing and maintaining brand equity in each of them different markets can be difficult without a huge team or a huge presence within each of them markets. Then effectively you're doing things in a cost-effective way, but you are having to forge and develop partnerships with your distributors, maybe in a different way. You've got to really harness and embrace that partnership with them, because effectively they will be managing your brand for you, and you need to be really clear as to what your identity is to help them align to where the product needs to go, what the product's promotional strategy needs to be, and also as well what the execution needs to look like in store. It's got to be executed in the right way, in the right stores, at the right price.
Yeah, and I think that is, it's a big journey for businesses to get to that stage of, you are handing over those reins, and perhaps trust and faith as well that, that brand, once it is overseas in a different country, that perhaps you're not physically based to just go and be popping down and see that they are actually, delivering your brand as you have intended it to be as well.
Absolutely. To be fair though, like for our brand, Seventh Heaven, we do have really good distribution partners. I must emphasize that. The guys that we work with are great. They love the brand. They don't necessarily have conflicts within their portfolio either, but they do have complementary products. So for us, like, finding that partner makes a huge difference, because if they can love the brand as much as we do, then it's got every chance of succeeding.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And for small, medium-sized product businesses, who are looking to scale and have, the big dreams, the big visions of being, the multi-million-pound world domination, from your experience and what you've seen in organizations, what should they be looking out for when they grow? What pitfalls perhaps have you seen that may occur as you're, growing as an organization?
Probably two things, to be fair. One, stock management. So ensuring you have a good understanding of what the trajectory will look like by product type. Working in a business like I do at the moment, we've got well over 200 SKUs. So managing that portfolio is difficult. Second thing to that is cash flow. I've seen it not necessarily in this business, but in previous businesses. Once you begin to scale, that investment is key, and you need cash to scale. I don't think I probably could emphasize that enough. Cash is probably one of the most important things when you're trying to scale a business.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, when you do have large SKUs of products, how do people keep that manageable? How can you keep across that level of detail?
Difficult. It's very difficult. Like one of the things we're trying to do at the moment is understand what's most important for the business to move forward, and therefore rationalizing some ranges, because inevitably you do have trends that come and go. So therefore making sure that you exit them trends once they have seen their peak. And then also at the same point though, you need to then introduce MPD, which then adds further SKUs into your portfolio, and manage that in a methodical way. But no, it's difficult, especially when you've got that many SKUs. You've got to be pragmatic about your approach.
And do you think it is important for businesses, if they've launched and they've got perhaps a small product range, and it's doing really well, you're growing a good brand identity for that product, how important do you think it is to keep adding new products to that portfolio versus just focusing purely on, the small range that you've got and being known that is what you do and what you sell?
I think having a core range is key. I do think innovation is needed, especially in the market that we have today, where consumers are generally looking for newness. They're looking for something to excite them. Also, as well, you want to bring new consumers into the brand, and generally MPD can be a way to unlock new consumer groups, new target audiences, and also then I guess expand the breadth of the brand. Whilst at the same time, though, I do agree with you. You've got to have a core range of products that you nurture and harness, because they are I guess that's the bread and butter.
Yeah. And have you seen, do you think, businesses can sort of almost fall into we need to launch something new, we best launch something new, and then there's just sort of products coming a little bit out left, right and center, and then actually there's too many products that perhaps they don't need?
Yes, I've had previous experience of that as well, to be fair. So I think that in one of the previous businesses, we launched over 50 products in a year and it wasn't needed.
Wow.
We ended up, and then again, when I'm touching on like cash flow again,
Yes.
it constrains your cash flow. You're then obviously then trying to find outlets for products that probably haven't performed as well. And you're trying to do that in a manageable way without it being the detriment to your brand either. Because obviously if you start discounting your brand too much, then it's then perceived maybe in a different way. So yeah, it's a fine balance. But I think it's understanding your consumer at the end of the day. If you understand your consumer and what their wants and needs are and what their future wants and needs may be, or if there's a different consumer group that you want to start targeting, then innovation can be done in a more manageable way.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point to take out for sure. And when we think about the world of retail, obviously you've worked with, all of the large UK supermarkets and, a lot of other of the retail, both online and offline. What advice would you have to brands, who are smaller, who are trying to get into retailers?
I think it's key that you understand your USP. If you understand your USP and who your target market is, and you are picking the right retailers to partner with, then it will make the conversations a lot easier. I think what you do also need to understand is the retailers in general will want some form of data. So having something to support your argument or case will help. And generally, the retail buyers will look for data, whether it's IRI, Kantar, etc., to help support that case, because essentially they're going to have to sell your idea to someone else in the business. It's not necessarily going to be them who makes the final decision either. And I don't know, I think we all know that retailers as well are condensing ranges. So giving them as much ammunition as possible is vital.
Yeah. Do you think brands can exist purely online?
Yes, I do think brands can purely exist online. However, I do think it's good for brands to have both a bricks and mortar presence and an online presence, because you will inevitably capture more of the market potentially at that point. But I think if you look at the way in which brands are now marketing products, though, it's key that you do have an online presence, because a lot of the marketing is done through Meta, TikTok, Google. It's inevitable that people will find your product online first, potentially, rather than finding it in store.
Yes. And I know you're passionate about the world of employee well-being as well. What have you seen change in your career in that space? If you think when you first entered the workforce, how have things changed, do you think?
Well, I think massively. I think when I first entered the workforce, employees were just seen as a commodity, whereas now I do personally believe that you've got to harness your team and you've got to really give them the tools to be able to do the job, but also as well you've got to appreciate that they are the life and breath of the company, and they are the people who are going to make the difference at the end of the day. Your company doesn't exist without a terrific team behind you. So yeah, I'm fully supportive of having good initiatives in place, having listening groups within the company. So like for instance, within Seventh Heaven, we've recently set up a listening group that will allow all of the employees to feed into the listening group. They can take ideas, they can find pinch points within the business, they can come to the floor with solutions, and also as well it gives them it makes them more empowered than they might have been otherwise.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I was going to say, do you do anything particular to foster that employee well-being? But yes, you've just answered it there. And I think bringing them into the conversation and being part of the brand and the business, and as you said, not just being seen as a commodity. That's
I think probably in conjunction with that as well, one thing that I do like to do within the business with my team is make sure that we are really transparent about how the business is performing, where the business is going, what the pinch points are, but what the opportunities are at the same time. I think the more that the team is informed as to how the business is doing and where are we going, the more it inspires them, and the more we can demonstrate what the businesses achieved. So like, for instance, we do now a monthly newsletter, and people can see where the product is now being stocked, what activations we're doing. It actually brings to life what everybody's doing behind the scenes. Whereas, I don't know, otherwise, I don't know, people are tapping away on spreadsheets, or they're producing stuff in the factories, or packing stuff in the warehouse, and you don't see the end result sometimes. Whereas it's really nice to actually see the product land on shelf and come together in some form of activation.
Yeah, and I think you sort of touched on it there, that so many companies perhaps over the years have so focused on what that marketing and comms is to the consumer. It's always, oh, we've got to send the consumer this. They're forgetting to actually be communicating internally to really the people who are the biggest brand advocates, in-house. And if people are passionate about where they're working and the product and brand they're working on, they're equally going to be telling fellow friends and family who are all consumers, as well.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be honest, I used to work for Peroni, and one of the incentives we were given as staff at the time was, if you went out for a beer with your friends, if nobody was drinking Peroni during that night out, you could buy everyone a Peroni in the bar who you were out with. And I guess there's no better way than I guess, letting people try your products, experience your products, and they say that they then become advocates of the product themselves.
Absolutely. That is a great little incentive. You'll buy the round, because if other people are like, oh no, I'm just going to stick to my usual drink, it's, well, I'm going to get you a free one so you can give it a go. So
it was great for my round because they never knew.
Oh well, they do now. So now anyone's like doing, oh right, that's why he was always able to.
Cheeky kid.
Now, through everything that you've seen and learned over the years, and have you been tempted to launch your own product?
Oh yes.
I won't ask you what it is, but do you think you'd be tempted down the line to launch something?
I'd say I was tempted at one point. However, now probably not. No, I enjoy the setup in which I work in, and I think having to start something from scratch seems too daunting at this point in time. So no, I'm quite happy actually working with an established brand and helping that brand grow to another level.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I don't blame you, because as I'm listening to a lot of your advice and tips and thinking, all these things one might need to implement and such, and I'm thinking, how are we going to do that? Yeah, okay. As well. And it is a lot to actually to be thinking of, to really be, to achieve such, shall we say, growth or milestones for businesses. Oh, well, thank you for sharing all of those insights from, your journey, from what you've seen, these large organizations and product businesses. As I like to ask all our guests, I'm now going to ask you some of the questions from the Really Good Conversations cards. And I've picked you a couple of questions from the kids pack.
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't know what that says about me, but
I like to just mix it up for guests as well. Although when I actually selected the cards, I thought they're not necessarily like, too child skewed, really. They would work for all of us. But question number one, are you more of a morning person or a night person?
Definitely more of a morning person. So my morning routine generally starts at 5 a.m. in the gym for about 5:30, and come home, and then I'd start work by 8, 7:30, 8 o'clock. So yeah, much more of a morning person.
Wow. And what time do you start to keel over on a night? Because to achieve those 5 a.m. wake ups, do you get to bed early?
Anytime between probably like 9:30 and 10.
Oh, you see, I aspire to be these sorts of people. I say to Alex, but Alex and I are a bit more night owls, and it does often slip to the 11 midnight or such. And Alex often says to me, Amy, just accept you are not one of these 5 a.m. people. Accept that is not you. But I can see so much. The times I have got up early, crack of dawn, done the exercise, XXX, you feel like you've got so much done before the day sort of really gets going. And
yeah, to be fair, for me, I think it's great, because then I don't have an excuse at the end of the day as to why I'm not going to go out and go to the gym or whatever else. And plus, I have a good network of friends who do the same.
Yeah, brilliant. Have you always had that, do you think, through your working career, or is it something that
No, I used to be more of probably a night owl, and then as time went on, I found it just easier to build my day in that way, just because I found myself getting more out of the day through doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something that's taking time.
They do say you can sort of retrain your circadian rhythms. So even if if you think you're a certain, type, you can actually train it. I think the problem is that certainly Alex is even more of a night owl than me. So if I'm trying to get to bed earlier, he'll be later anyway. So
Oh, really?
it doesn't help. Now, question number 2. If you could switch lives with any person for a day, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. Who would I switch lives with? I'd switch lives with Ryan Reynolds, I think, actually.
Oh,
Yeah. Just because he's involved in so many different things, not just obviously movies and acting. He's involved in lots of different business ventures, and I think it'd be really interesting to see and understand, how his day is structured when he's having a lot of them conversations. And plus, well, I don't know, he seems like quite a funny guy. So
yeah. So it's not just for the ladies throwing themselves at you that would appeal to be.
I wouldn't say no to that either, but.
It would be interesting how he manages that on his day. So if he's en route for a meeting and he's getting stopped at autographs, it's a bit like, I really don't have time for this because actually I am now going to more of a business. That's a great one. I was actually trying to think myself before the call, and I slightly thought, for me, I thought of the Richard Branson. One, I'd quite like to go to Necker Island. I think that would be just awesome. And then equally, I thought there's so many just different things going on. And I think it was in my mind because I'd seen on LinkedIn that they've a campaign that they've just given a whole flight of passengers on a Virgin flight a free ticket for one of the new Voyager cruises.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. So, I wish I was on that flight as well.
I know. And you're like, why am I never in these situations? So I think he was at the forefront of my mind when I was thinking about it. But equally, yeah, these people who have lots of different things happening, it would be fascinating to see the conversations they're having of a day for sure. And question number 3, would you rather be able to fly or be able to turn invisible?
Probably be able to fly. I'll be honest, my commute to work isn't the shortest. So if I could fly there, it would make it a hell of a lot easier.
That would be definitely a great reason for it. I'm not a huge fan of heights myself, so I wasn't too sure about just being freely flying in the sky. So, oh, brilliant! Well, thank you for taking part in answering those quick questions for me. And the final question that I love to ask all of our guests as well is: if you could ask any person, dead or alive, a question, who would it be, and what would you ask them?
Now, I know we have obviously spoken before this podcast, so I did think about this quite a bit. The person I would ask would probably be my granddad, who has passed away. He passed away many years ago. But really, just to understand more about him in his childhood. I think at the time, never really asked him enough questions about that, and probably was too dismissive of some of the stories he had to do with the war, which yeah, especially when he's probably told the same story about 20 times. I really wish I probably would have asked more pertinent questions around his childhood just to get more of an understanding of him.
That is amazing, and that totally resonates, obviously, with us. And I can't remember if I mentioned that for us that was almost the catalyst of us starting this whole venture with really good conversations. Was after Alex had lost his grandfather, and that realization of well. You hear the stories, or you realise the gaps that you have. And I know actually when I've asked my father, who is part of a family business that's been going since 1920. I've asked about his grandfather who started the business, and I said, and he's like, well, I don't know. I never asked.
It's crazy, yeah.
And it does think, but we all know. Through childhood, teenagers, and we're probably all still guilty of it now. You're running in and out of each other's lives, or everyone's always on the go. That often, yes, you don't take that time to find out the stories as well.
I say it was interesting. I was seeing something the other day where it said something like, for the first 18 years of your life when you live with your mum and dad, they see you every day, and then once you're past the age of 18 and you move out of the house, they only see you in total for 1 year.
Oh,
which is
gosh.
a crazy stat. I don't know whether it's true or not. I see it, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised.
No, and this is what panics me, myself now about having a son. I'm thinking, gosh, we're putting all of this time and energy, and then he's just going to go off. No, and go to his own life as well. So yes, but no, that, and I've seen a similar sort of thing with a graph as well, actually, that also sort of said who you sort of spend your life in and around. Again, yes, parents, family, and then this graph, and obviously then off to other people that you meet through your life, school, work, etc. Yeah, so it is interesting when you think of it. But that is amazing answers. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. And finally, where could people perhaps connect with you or find out a little bit more information about you and Seventh Heaven?
Yeah, sure. So if they want to find out more about the brand, which would be fantastic, they can go on to www.myseventhheaven.com. And if you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm sure there'll be a link to this podcast.
Absolutely.
And yes, you can find out more about myself and the brand through those 2 links.
Brilliant. I will attach them to this. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I feel like we've had a fast track into how we are going to be growing, all these product-based businesses to be multi-million-pound organizations. So thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on today's guests. And if really good conversations are your thing, hit subscribe and join us next time for more business journeys, insights and banter.